We are recording this session for future use. We'll put it up on our website, provided it's better than the previous one. Again, I want to welcome you all to Jvillage Learn. Today's topic in the Mastering the Basics series, calling Rocking Your Roller Images. So we're going to talk all about roller images. And these are your slideshow images that appear for most of you at the very top of your website. And typically they change over time. Most of you probably also have buttons that let you select them. And what I'm going to focus on today is talking about preparing these images for display. And there are a few gotchas, and we're going to go through, and I'm going to use an online picture editor, which I find very handy, that you are free to use to prepare some roller images. But first, I'm going to talk about this term that if you've dealt with me before, you've probably heard the term aspect ratio. And the aspect ratio of an image is basically its width divided by its height, and it's expressed as a number, or like 1.5, or it could be a ratio like 3:2. And this is a very important number. And your website, your project manager, whether it was me or Jean Elizabeth, you need to, or anyone else, you need to set a standard for that aspect ratio. And the reason for that is that provided when these images are all the same shape, then each one of them will display without any problem, without any distortion, without any gaps. One of the problems that arises, and you may have seen this on your website, is I'm going to add an image here by publishing it, and I'm going to add an image in here that is of a different aspect ratio than the other images. And you're going to see the effect of that, and you may have noticed this on your own website. And this is what you want to try to avoid. So, okay, so there's my first. I've added this slide. And what we're going to see is when I go to the next slide, we now have a gap down here below the rest of the images. And that's going to be consistent for the rest of the images. Typically, this roller image block will be the height of the tallest slide, that is, with respect to its width. So it's actually going to have the aspect ratio that is the smallest. Excuse me. So I'm going to look at a couple of things here. So if you've noticed this gap in your slideshow, that is most likely the reason you're seeing it, is that one or more of your slides are of a different aspect ratio. Now, on some sites, this is reflected as a gap below the slideshow. And on some websites, this divider between the slideshow and your content will actually jump up and down based on the aspect ratio of the slides. And that can be even more annoying than having that bar in there. So I'm going to take that slide back out. There's something else that's really, and I'm going to make this point. I'm going to ask the question, what is it about this slide that probably doesn't make it a great roller image? And for me, it's the fact that there are no people in it. It's a lovely sanctuary, but when somebody hits this website, you want to see people. You want to see what's going on. So that's just a little aside comment. Okay, so what kinds of you pick your own images for your slideshow, and they are called roller images, and they are a content type all their own. I'm going to go take this guy out of here. And I'm going to go into how we can make sure that these roller images are correct. So anytime you want to remove a slide from the slideshow, all you need to do is unpublish it. And when you go back to look at your slideshow, make sure you refresh your screen. Okay, so now we're back to a consistent size for all our roller images. And the particular roller images we're looking at here, they have an aspect ratio of call it rounded off to about 1.5 to 1, which is to say they are 1.5 times wider than they are tall. Okay. Now, let's get down to business. So we have some roller images that we want to add to our slideshow. And I have some images here. Let's say I want to use this image here. Okay, and this particular image I'm going to start with is it has an overall dimension of 1200 by 950. You can see it's a large image, being 1200, and its aspect ratio 1200 over 950. If I do the math, is about 1.25 to 1. So it is only 1.25 times wider than it is tall, which is why it looks this way. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you a couple more images like this. For instance, if I were to take this image, and I'm going to show a couple of the different examples at different aspect ratios, and you know what? We'll look at those right on our Try It website, our Try It demonstration site. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my content listing because I have all my roller images right here. And I'm going to unpublish the ones that I have been using, which basically, if I sort my list on published versus non-published, that makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to unpublish these four so that we can see some examples of different aspect ratios. Whoops. Okay, so let's bulk unpublish these. And this is a real handy way to change things out. Okay, and now I'm going to put in, I have a number of images of different aspect ratios and so on. Now the other thing to keep in mind is the width of those slides is also important, but not as important as the aspect ratio. All right, I'm going to take these slides and I'm going to publish them. And we'll be able to see how different aspect ratios affect the home page slideshow. And let's not pay any attention to the actual height right now. Let's pay attention to the image itself. So number one, we have 800 by 400, or a 2.2 to 1. Here's 800 by 450. Now, 800 by 450 is a very popular aspect ratio. It matches high HD photography. So if you have a widescreen or a widescreen monitor. So that's a fairly standard aspect ratio. Then I have 1.67 to 1, or 5 to 3. And if you think about 3 by 5 photographs, that is the aspect ratio of a 3 by 5 photograph, which is a 1.67 or 1 2/3 to 1. And then I have an 800 by 600, which is another popular screen format. 4 to 3 is the ratio that you see on most computer monitors and in most particularly older digital cameras. It was one of the original standards. 4 to 3 is actually the aspect ratio, I believe, of a 35 millimeter slide. So again, images that are already in that aspect ratio won't have to be cropped if they match what you're using on your slideshow. Finally, let's hear another one. This is our 800 by 633. You notice that this is 1.27 to 1. You'll notice that at 800, you've seen all these slides are 800 pixels wide. And we use that as a recommended minimum width for your slides. If your slides are too small to begin with, what's going to happen is they will actually be enlarged to fill the space on your slideshow. And some slides, if they're too small, if they're, let's say, under 400 pixels initially, that enlargement can introduce some fuzziness because they don't have the resolution that you're asking them to have, but the platform will actually enlarge them to fit the space. So if you want good, sharp photos, they should be 800 pixels. 800 to 1,000 pixels is a good rule of thumb for a roller image. And finally, so now here is an image that is 1200. Okay, 1200 by 950. You'll notice it has the same aspect ratio as this 800 by 633 pixel image. So we can see that despite it being a different size, an absolute size in pixels, it is the same aspect ratio. So they both work. And they both look pretty good. If I was to take this and make it a 400 pixel wide image, when I blew it up to this size, you would notice a difference. Now, because of the responsive design that you have on your most of you have on your websites, as I make the windows smaller, you can see that those images scale, and eventually they will wrap into a vertical column. And this is the so-called responsive design aspect of our websites that enables them to display a little more effectively on mobile devices. So, all right, so let's go back, and you can see one of the trade-offs with these various aspect ratios. If we were to use this 800 by 400, this gap would be removed, and my main content would be that much higher on the page. So that's one of the decisions you need to make when somebody hits your home page. If we're using something like this, and this is a great example, we're using something like this, somebody hits the home page, all they see is the slideshow. Okay. Whereas if I had this sort of aspect ratio, this content down here would be a lot higher on the screen. And so that's a consideration. But the important thing is that all of your slides measure up, so to speak, to the same aspect ratio. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to go back to my original slides, go into my content listing, and I'm going to unpublish our demo slides. Okay, and then I'm going to re-enable the slides that I had originally put in there by publishing them. So if I go back to my slideshow and refresh my page, I'll see we're back to a very consistent presentation. Now, as I said earlier, the aspect ratio of these slides is about 1.56 to 1. So let's say I've got an image that I want to add to my slideshow. And I'm going to run through that with you because there are two important steps to doing this. The first, of course, and the order that you do this in is very important. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go open our favorite image editor. And in this case, I'm using a free online image editor called Pixlr. And it's very handy. It's very easy to use. It's actually pretty powerful. I'm going to select Pixlr Editor. And this is going to open up a screen for me. Okay. And, I'm going to add an image. I'm going to re-add this father and son image that I was working with earlier. So I open my Pixlr window. I'm going to go full screen here so that we can see what's going on. You're free to create a new image or open an image from your computer, however you'd like to do that. So I'm going to go to my computer, and I'm going to go find the image that I want to use. Let's see. Okay, and I'm going to choose this image right here. Okay, and I'm going to move these other boxes out of the way. So I've loaded this image into the editor. And the first thing I want to do is establish by cropping that aspect ratio that I want to see. And Pixlr lets me do that pretty conveniently. I've already selected, this is the cropping tool up here in the corner. And the cropping tool allows me to constrain the image, the shape of the image, either by aspect ratio or by raw size. So I'm going to constrain it by aspect ratio. And as I said, I'm going to use 1.56 to 1. Rather than dealing with decimals, I'm going to call this 156 to 100. I don't think this field actually takes decimals. So, and once I've done that, now I can draw a box on my screen. And that box will always have the aspect ratio that I have demanded. I can resize that box. I can make it as big as possible, which would basically take me to the width of the screen. But you can see some of this image needs to be cropped out to achieve that aspect ratio. Okay. I could also choose a smaller portion of the image. All right, and I can fit that into my screen. This is a fairly close-in shot, so I'm going to stick with most of my image. I'm going to go full width here with my 1.56 to 1. Okay. And basically moving this box around, I can see basically what my final image is going to look like in terms of how it's cropped. So I'm going to go ahead and double-click inside of this window. And there it has cropped the image to that aspect ratio of 1.56 to 1. Okay? And this I do before I actually change any of the size of the image. So this image currently, it's still 1200 pixels wide. And in fact, right now, okay, it's 1194. Down at the bottom of this editing screen, I can see the actual dimensions of the image that I'm working on. It's 1194. I missed a few pixels when I cropped by 765. So that's almost 1200 pixels, which is actually a little on the large size. None of your websites are actually 1200 pixels wide. So in just about any situation, that image is going to have to be reduced in size for display. And like all images on websites, your browser downloads the entire image, even if this was a 5 megapixel image that with on the order of thousands of pixels in each dimension. That whole file has to download to your browser, and that chews up resources, it chews up time, it slows things down, and so on. So you'd really like to optimize the size, which is why we recommend that 800 to 1000 range for the width of your roller images. So the next thing I want to do then is change this up so that rather than being 1200 by 765, I'm going to choose my 800 number. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go into image and I'm going to click on image size, which is another tool here. And it pops open a window that lets me set the width and height of the image. Now, this constrained proportions box, we're going to leave that checked. And I'm going to put in 800. And when you may notice that when I did that, the height automatically changed to 513. And that is, again, to maintain that aspect ratio. If this was not checked, I conceivably could do 800 by 480, let's say, for instance. And what's going to happen is it's going to change the size of my image, and I don't know if you can detect that it got distorted a bit. It's a little more squat than it was. I could exaggerate that, and this is particularly important because some people just crop on image size, and in doing that, if I take this and let's say I make this 400, whoops, okay, well, if I took this same image and made it 1194, which was its original width, by 400, and I don't constrain the proportions, I get something that looks, maybe you've seen this on TV sometimes when TVs aren't in the right mode, but obviously it distorts the image. And that's particularly important, and I'm using Control-Z, undo, to reverse my effects here. So you want to, particularly with images of people, because we're very sensitive to the shape of people's heads in particular. We can tell when an image is distorted. If you're just putting text on your slide, maybe that's not as important. But again, we've already made adjustments for that aspect ratio, so we would like to keep that a constant. And the way we do that is to make sure that that constrained proportions box is checked. So I want to take this down to, let's say, 800 pixels in width. and that's going to leave me with an image that's 800 by 513, and I'm going to click OK. All right, so there's what my image is going to look like. That's all I need to do to my image. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to save my image back to my computer. I'll give it a name, Dad and Son. And there are a variety of different formats you can use. A JPEG, as it says right here, is good for most photos, particularly on a website. It allows for a reasonable amount of compression, gives you a pretty good small file. You can play around with this quality setting. Generally, anything between 70 and 90 is going to be good. The higher the quality, the larger the file. The lower the quality setting, the smaller the file, but you may lose a little bit of detail or see some artifacts in your image. So the standard is that the Pixlr uses is 80, and we're going to leave it at that. So I'm going to click on OK. It's going to open up a window back to my computer. I'm going to call it Father and Son. Since I've already done a bunch of these, I'll just call it Father and Son Edited. And I'm going to save it back to my computer. Okay, so I'm now done with Pixlr. I can close this tab altogether and go back to my website. And in this case, I'm going to be adding a piece of content. I'm going to be adding a roller image to my website. So I'm going to click on Add Content, Roller Image, which I can do a variety of different ways. We'll give it a title. In this case, all right, I'll call it Father and Son. Actually, I think I may already have one there, so I'll call it Father and Son 2. And in this case, in the case of a roller image, this title doesn't actually display on the roller image. And for our slideshow, this body text area, the way our Try It site is set up, we do have a content area beside the slide. And there are two ways that Jvillage slideshows can be set up. One would be to have the slide go the full width of this block, regardless of whether there's a sidebar over here. And the other method, the other model, is that this text block does not show, and all you have up here is a picture. And we have sites that use both of those models. But since I do have a picture, I have an editing area, and this picture. I'll just put some text in here. Aspect equals 1.56 to 1, or just 1.56. Okay, and as you know, we can format this text. We can apply a heading style to it, and so on and so forth. And now the next thing I have is my sort order. So this sort order field allows me to determine what order my slides are in. And I'm going to show you a page, and this is something that is recently added to our websites. You might not all have it. But it's a page called admin/roller images. It's not generally a public-facing page. You can try it on your own website. It might be just roller images, but for the most part, we've tried to make it admin/roller images. And this page actually gives you a one-page summary of all of your roller images. And it shows you a thumbnail of each of the images. It shows you what order they are in the sort order, which determines the order in which they will be displayed. You've got the title that you've applied, and whether or not that image is actually published. And of course, you can sort, just like in a content listing, you can sort on these columns. So I can see here I've sorted on published, and I see 4 published, and the rest are not published. If I want to work with a particular image, I can just click on it, and I'll be taken to that image's content page. Okay, so a little side there. So I'm going to go back to my create, but I'm going to go back to this. Okay, so right now I'm going to sort by sort order. so I can see what order my slides are coming in. And I do have to take a look at the publishing status of each of these to really determine. So I've got Reading Torah is at 10, and I've got Confirmation at 15. I've got Shofar at 30. So let's say I wanted to put this in between Reading Torah and Confirmation. So that's between 10 and 15. And you'll notice that as I've assigned these slide numbers, when I created my original slideshow, I left gaps intentionally. I went 10, 20, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, etc. And the reason for that is that you can't put a slide between slide 1 and slide 2. You can't use fractions in the sort order. So I like to leave room between my slides in the sort orders so that I can insert additional slides before I eventually have to go back in and reorganize everything. So I'm just going to call this, I guess I'll call this slide 13. So I'll put 13 in my sort order. And now I'm going to upload my file. So I need to go choose the file. And where are we? Edited. Dad and Son edited. So I'm going to click on that. I could double click it or click open. Now at this point my slide has not actually been uploaded yet. So I'm going to click upload, which will pull the slide up onto my site. But it's still not actually found on the site. We have to make sure that before we try to use this slide, if you don't click save, you'll never see this piece of content. Okay, but going down to the rest of these options, these should all look pretty familiar to you. We're going to leave it published, that is the default, and we're going to click save. Okay, so here's my slide. It's showing me the content of the slide, it's showing me the sort order, and so on. And now if I go back to my home page, and I'll do that over here, and refresh my screen, I now have gone from 4 slides to 5, and I can see that the slide that I've inserted is the second slide, which is right where it should be. And you'll notice again, because we preserved that aspect ratio, there's no gap, there's no bouncing of the line at the bottom, and everything is consistent. By the way, if you have any questions, and we'll have a little Q&A session coming up here, you can use the chat window that you have in the Join.me platform. So that's basically the procedure for making sure that your roller images fit. And if you have any questions, we do have on our website, if you go to the Jvillage website and go to our client support area, which is simply client-support, or down here under support and training, if you go to learn more notes and how-tos, you will find that we have some documents about this very process. In fact, I've documented the process we use today. Where are we here? Okay, getting your roller images in shape. And this is a PDF file you can download. And it talks about the very things I've covered today, the aspect ratio, and getting your images in shape. And it steps through the process that I showed you using Pixlr. So if you want to download that document or view it online, you can just go to our website. And again, that was under support and training, learn more, notes and how-tos. There's a variety of, there's a lot of good stuff in here. If you have questions about other aspects of working with your website. And of course, we are always available by phone. Well, not always available by phone. We try to be available by phone as much as we can. So, you know, we've only used up about 35 minutes. I'd like to maybe open it up. Let's see. There's a question from Natalie at Barnard Temple. We have many flyers that are vertical that we would like to post as a roller image. Any suggestions how to make them work? And, you know, we come back to this aspect ratio image. So if you have if you have a piece of content that is, let's say, this we typically call landscape mode, and the vertical orientation is called portrait mode, just like a portrait would be. One of the challenge there is, well, if we have a portrait document and we don't wish to cut off anything at the top and bottom, what can we do? All right, I'm going to go back into Pixlr and load up. We'll load up another image. Let's see. I don't know if I have a portrait image right on my tip of my tongue here, but let's. I bet I can find one. Let me take a look. Okay, yes, I'm going to start the editor. And let's open up an image. Okay, I found an image. So I'm going to open an image from my computer. And I'm going to go into my Judaica graphics folder. And here I have some candlesticks. Okay, which are obviously which are in landscape portrait orientation. Now, this particular image is 392 by 500 pixels. So if I wanted to, suppose I wanted to put this image into a roller image, well, there's not enough border anywhere unless I decided I wanted to crop it to really do anything with that. So what I could do is I'm going to use a canvas size. I'm going to create a canvas, and I'm going to create that canvas at the size that I need, which was, well, actually, okay, 800 by 515. And this little grid here shows me where I want to put the particular image that I've got. Okay, and we're going to need to blow things up here a little bit. Whoops. Actually, I want to position it. Yeah, here we go. Okay. I'm going to click yes. Oops, what have we done here? Okay. Oh, I selected a portion of the image. My mistake here. Let's take this from the top. I'm going to use my Control Z. I've still got my image here. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give myself a large canvas to start with. And I'm actually going to make it square. And I'm going to anchor up here. See what that does for me. Okay, so here now I can see I've got my there's my candles. There are my candlesticks. So what I want to do at this point is I want to change this into some sort of a horizontal orientation. And I'm going to use some of the same techniques I did before. I'm going to blow this up a little bit. Okay, so here I've got my original image, and I just kind of stuck it in there. I'm going to go back into image, and I'm going to adjust my image size. And again, I'm going to use the aspect ratio that I decided I wanted to use. Whoops. 800. Because I've made it square. You got me on this one because I have not actually tried this with this editor. So I'm going to back out. All right. So here's my original image. And let's try that canvas again. Let's see. 800 by 515. What is my original image? I'm going to take a copy of this. And I'm going to copy this. and I'm going to make a new image. New image. And I'm going to call it candlesticks. Okay, and I want this image to be, well, we'll use, let's see, 800 by 515, and that's going to create an image for me. And now I'm going to paste that image that I copied. Let's see. Oh. Well, I tell you, let's get on the phone with this one, because honestly, I have not done this with this editor. So I will look through this, and we can go over that. If I had my other image here, my candlestick image, okay, here we go. Well, you got me on this one. I apologize, and this is something I'll look at, and we can have a conversation about it. I know that it is easy to do. I have another editor that I use routinely for this kind of stuff that I know how to do this in, but I do apologize for not being facile with Pixlr in this regard. So, are there any other questions that I can't answer out there? I would like to revisit this very much, but I'm not going to take up your time while I'm figuring out the proper procedure. So anyway, I would like to move on. Are there any other questions? What I'm going to do you have to use Pixlr is a question from. No, actually you can use any image editor that you are familiar with that will allow you to do the kind of editing. So something like the simplest editors like Paint that comes with Windows is not even sophisticated enough. It's not sophisticated enough to let you set a specific aspect ratio. So it's going to be a lot more clunky to do things like that. There is a browser, an image tool that I do like to use, and this is very handy for editing. It does a certain amount of editing. It's called Faststone Image Viewer, and this is a great little image management tool that has some editing features built in. It's free. I liked it well enough that I actually paid to register my copy. And it gives you a whole host of features. And I can actually, let me bring up an image in Faststone. If you write down faststone.org, that's where you will find it. So when I'm browsing an image, so basically I can, let me go to the browser. Okay, this is what Faststone looks like in the browser mode. And I can go to different folders in my computer, and I can look at individual images or folders. So here's a photo album. I can adjust the view that I have of the various images. And if I open an image, I have a variety of tools that I can use. I have editing tools. I can rotate, flip. I can even edit things, adjust the lighting and the colors. It's fairly sophisticated. It's nowhere near as sophisticated as something like Photoshop, but quite honestly, I do a lot of photography, and I don't use 90% of what Photoshop can do. I do use Photoshop Elements, which is another great tool. But this is a great free tool that you can use. It's got various effects, and you can do cropping. Okay, so here's an example how you can crop with it. And I can actually set up my aspect ratio here, okay, for cropping. So there's let's say 3:2 ratio, which is what's set here, so that as I adjust my cropping box, it will stay again with a consistent aspect ratio. And then I can save my image out to a file. So this is a very handy tool that I'm very fond of, and I would highly recommend it. So Are there any other questions? What I'd like to do at this point is I'm going to open up the conference. Has any questions to ask? I'm wide open for you. Are there any questions out there?
Hi, it's Natalie again.
Hi, Hi Natalie.
So does this Fastone image viewer work the same as Pixlr, and will I be able to do the portrait and turn it into a landscape? Because I have done it in like Paint, but what happens a lot of times, it like the flyer will get distorted, or if it's a person's face, kind of. So
Paint is fairly limited. Fairly limited. And that's it's the very most basic sort of picture editor that comes with Windows. So I don't generally create new images in Fastone. Let me take a look.
Well, it's not even creating them. It's really taking our portrait flyers and making them into something that fits nicely on.
Yeah, and one of the issues you're going to run into, unless your flyers, if your flyers have big bold print on them, great. But if they have text that's smaller, when you try to squeeze that landscape image into that portrait image into a landscape format, you'll basically be adding bars on either side of it. It's going to get small. The stuff's going to get small. The other thing about displaying things like newsletters and such as images, and this applies across your website. I know that some people try to take a JPEG image or a PDF and display it on a page as content. And the other issue with images is that they're not indexed for searching. They're pictures, so there's no text per se associated with them. So you won't be able to search for them. They don't get indexed for searching, and they do get scaled. They get scaled as the window changes size on your web page. So imagine, and I don't have an example that has text on it, but if you imagine text on this slide, as I make the windows smaller, you can see that it's going to get smaller up to a point.
Right.
And at some point, you have to ask, is that still legible?
Right.
So when you have text pretty much stays the same size.
Right.
Okay, and you can't really. This is where you would put text. So the whole idea of trying to, unless you have something like, if it's a banner of some sort, and what a lot of our members do with their slideshows is they create images that are basically like little billboards. Okay,
right.
So here's an example: Temple Bethel in northern Westchester. Okay, and they combine images and text, but it's really, you can see that it's large text, so that even when the site gets adjusted, it's still very visible.
Right. Well, what we try to do is we put like the flyer on the left, or the image on the left, and the writing on the right. Which my other question is, there are times where, so I've tried to put a picture in, it's not working. I have text on the right, like you have family friendly, but when I remove the picture, the text is gone also. There's actually a slide that's still there, but there's nothing written there. You know what I'm saying? Like if you were to take this and delete that image, your whole you'd end up with a blue screen, family friendly, and all the words there would disappear as well.
Well, the nature of a roller image is that, a roller. This whole slideshow concept is intended to display images. So if you don't have an image in there, you don't have a complete content item.
Gotcha. So it takes everything away, even though it's published. But it just leaves a blue screen then. Okay. Sure.
And if you want a block over on the side that you can put other kinds of text in, that's something we can talk about. That would be probably a whole separate block. Unless you probably don't want to. You could create an image. You could create an image file that is blank, that is maybe one color, But again, if you can imagine this image that we're looking at now being gone, and this blue, I could create a blank blue image that's exactly the same size, and it will display, and you will see your family-friendly text over here. But you're going to have that huge blue blank white, the blank area to the left. So from a design perspective, that's probably not where you want to go.
No, I think it was more of like when I was trying to just get the picture to work, I still wanted the words and the placeholder there, because it takes a certain amount of time anyway once you get out of the editing screen to the actual website. So while you're in while I'm logged on, it's an immediate change, but anybody else logging in, I think it's 15 minutes or something before they actually see the updated site.
Yeah, I mean, we are aware of that caching issue, but I would keep it unpublished and publish it all at once, because if you can see the text, you should be seeing the image. I mean, they're not cached separately.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And the other trick that I've been sharing with a lot of people, if you use Chrome or Firefox, actually any of the browsers, you've probably issue where things don't show up as quickly as you'd like them to, and that's a caching issue, not only on the website, but your web pages are cached in a variety of places. And I'd like to show you something in Chrome, which is called an incognito window.
Okay.
Firefox has something similar. It's called a private window. And when you open this window, it's giving you a fresh browser that has no history, has no caching, has no cookies or anything else. So if you're working on a web page and you want to see what it's going to look like to the outside world, very frequently if you create this incognito window and go to your website, you'll see the changes sooner there than if you're still logged in.
Oh, okay. Do you recommend using Firefox or Chrome or something else? I generally deal in Firefox, but does one work better?
Firefox is widely used by a lot of our clients. I use both. I tend to use Chrome at work. I tend to use Firefox at home. So I would say both browsers are excellent and should be as competitive. They're the big players,
Right.
So we work towards being compatible with the big players.
Okay.
And personally, I find both of them superior to Internet Explorer.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
If you're a Mac user, there is Safari, but you can also get Chrome and Firefox for the Mac.
Right. There's also usually less cookies and stuff associated with those too. Less pop-ups and stuff. Yeah, viruses.
Well, you can control that. Most browsers allow you to. There's a setting for pop-ups that will either block them or show them. So.
Yeah, our IT guy has us using Firefox and or Chrome.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Okay. Are there any other questions? I see we still have Andy, Natalie, and Pat here. If not, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
I can certainly help you with that portrait to landscape conversion, and I have to say it was a little embarrassing, but
sorry.
I didn't test run that one, and it's the first time I've actually gotten that question. So if you'd like, I'll explore that a little bit for you.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would love to know the answer. If you can, come up with something that's.
I'm sorry. Was that?
That was
Natalie?
Me. That was Natalie. Yep, that's.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I will look into that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us today, and happy Pesach to all. We're halfway through our week without chametz, and actually kind of looking forward to Friday night. So thanks again, and we'll see you at our next session, I hope.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care now.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.